This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview.
Is Mandir Singh, the chairman of Wildcat Petroleum. Thank you very much for joining us today, Mandir. The first time on Stockbox. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, and hello to all of the Stockbox viewers out there.
Indeed. Well, thank you for your time. I wonder if we can perhaps just start off, if you could, in maybe a minute or two, just give us the high-level overview of the company and what you're all about, where your focus is.
Okay, we listed about 3 years ago. Our focus is Africa, and what we have been trying to secure is a producing asset in Africa.
Okay.
We've looked in various countries, but we've settled down on Sudan as our main area of interest. And, we're hoping to do a production deal in Sudan.
Hoping to do a production deal in Sudan. Okay, and this just, what is the, the commodity? What is it you want to get? What is it you're after?
Well, what happened was last year we signed a MOU over 4 producing fields in Sudan.
Sure.
And we were hoping to convert that into a production sharing agreement this year. But unfortunately, there's been some political unrest in April. Yeah, which has set us back quite a bit. But the government sort of contacted us and in the autumn and said, look, if you want to, you can develop the bamboo field. Okay. I mean, the bamboo field is about 500 million barrels oil initially in place and peak production of 20,000 barrels a day. Okay. And then they said, okay, we're prepared to sign a service agreement with you in principle to increase oil production at the field. And then when the political situation allows it, then hopefully we'll convert the service agreement into a production sharing agreement. So what happened was around September time, we sent in our proposal to the minister of how we would, like to develop the field. Yeah. And now it's totally the ball's in the minister's court. Okay. And, he'll evaluate it and make a decision. So we're waiting on that decision wherever it is. Okay. But as soon as he's made the decision, we'll release appropriate RNS.
Okay, but it sounds then that the government and the ministry are quite supportive, are they, of getting this going?
Yeah, they are. The ministry is 100% behind Wildcat. Yeah. Okay. They need the money from the increased oil production for the refugee problems and whatnot. So they're very keen on us to produce oil. Okay. And, the actual bamboo field was their suggestion.
Okay. So and how does it go? So, how does it work? Do the government own the land? Is it Crown land, and then they take a royalty or percentage of the revenue?
Well, in Sudan, there's about 8 producing oil blocks, and the government directly owns 6 of those blocks. Yeah. One is owned by the state oil company, and one is owned by a Chinese company. So on 4 of the open blocks, we signed a MOU last year, block 1, 3, 4, and 5. And the government can decide themselves who develops the oil on those blocks.
Right, okay. And then and how does it work in terms of getting it into production? Does that have to be fully funded by the operator, or is there some government support there?
No, there's no government support. How it will probably pan out is we'll give the state oil company a carried interest, say 10%, yeah. Okay. And we'll fund 100% of the increase in oil production. I mean, all of the blocks are producing oil. The infrastructure is all in place. Our job would be just to increase the amount of oil being produced.
Okay. Okay. And I mean, what in terms of funding then? I mean, of course, you've got to wait for the approval, but you sound confident despite the geopolitical situation there. I mean, that is still a risk, I suppose, when that might be resolved. But of course, you've got to fund it as well. So just thinking on those two sort of risk elements here, first of all, when do you think you might get that approval? Do you think the geopolitical risk is a problem? And then secondly, how will you actually fund what you want to do?
Okay, the geopolitical risk is not as bad as people think.
Okay.
I mean, unfortunately, in these countries, there's always something going on. And, you know, these oil fields are located way in the south. And, you know, not everyone wants the revenue. So whoever is in charge, they necessarily just leave the mining and the oil industry alone. And, you know, the most of the fighting is in the West and in Khartoum. I think actually the amount of oil has increased since the fighting started in April. So it's a bit counterintuitive. I mean, the oil is still flowing through the pipelines now.
Okay.
It's still loaded onto the tankers.
Right.
And, you know, it's just a bit more difficult. The government has actually been working with the South Sudan government to actually get us access through the north and through the south. So, you know, it won't be a big problem.
So the oil still flows. It's just the government are perhaps preoccupied with other matters at the moment.
Well, what happened is it took the government relocated to Port Sudan.
Okay.
So after the trouble started in April, there were 3 or 4 months of nothing happening. And then they relocated to Port Sudan. And, you know, they had a 30-year civil war there. And the oil still flowed.
Okay.
So, you know, so now it's sort of business back to normal.
Okay.
They relocated. And as you say, the ministers have got things to think about.
Yeah.
But, you know, when it gets signed, you know, it's up to the minister, but we're hoping it's sooner rather than later.
Okay, so you don't have a time, but you're hoping it's sort of within the next 6 months?
Well, not next 6 months. Normally it takes, I mean, we put it in about September. It takes them about 3-4 months.
Okay.
To sort, you know, to evaluate it.
Okay.
And because people are working from home and whatnot.
Sure. Okay.
But, you know, they suggested to us. So it's more of when they agree a deal, not if.
Okay. And then on the funding side of it, I know, are you quite near quite a significant producer? There's a lot of capital involved in getting something into production like this.
Well, last year we signed a deal with Waterford Group, which is a natural resources fund based here in London. I mean, they've funded about 10, 15 oil companies.
Okay.
They're used to Africa. They've had assets in Somalia and Mauritania. You know, and through their network, especially in the Middle East, they've got access to hundreds of millions of dollars. So they're fully aware of what we're doing, and they are 100% behind us. So that's one source of funding. Also, in June, we announced that another group of investors were happy to give us $25 million for direct investment in Sudan. So we don't envisage many problems in getting the funds because hopefully the projects will be cash generative and profitable straight off the bat.
Okay.
So we'll be making money straight away. And people who are a bit more experienced in the oil industry, they understand how it works out there.
Okay.
And, you know, it's not a big problem.
And have you any idea, maybe it's too early to talk about how the funding structure may work, but would it be sort of debt equity, you know, a mixture of both, or royalty, you know, sort of on recurring revenue? Do you have any idea how the deal might be structured, or, you know, it's more share issues, you know, dilution?
Well, one, we're going to stay away from debt.
Okay.
And as the investors in June said, they're prepared to invest directly into the oil fields. So in the best case scenario, we get our work program approved. We get a third party to fund it. We work out some sort of repayments with them. And, when they get paid off, we give them a royalty over the wells and whatnot.
Right.
So, these are massive projects. I mean, to give you an example of the size of the project, I mean, Savannah Energy were just across the border from us in South Sudan. I mean, they're paying $1.25 billion. I'll repeat that, $1.25 billion for access to oil in South Sudan.
Right.
So these are major projects. I mean, these are world-class assets. I mean, the fields we're going after, I mean, they will run or handled by a consortium of 3 of the biggest oil companies in the world. But these are not small assets. And, people like Waterford, they've got their network of investors. And, there's other routes. We've been a bit busy. So once the deal's signed, we don't envisage any problems in getting it funded.
Okay. Well then, so what would you hope to expect as you go into sort of Q1 2024? Would you hope to get some news on the government sign-off and then start talking about actually how you're going to fund the project?
Well, our objective is always to be a profitable oil-producing company. So hopefully this time next year, I'll be coming on and we will be saying, right, we're making a lot of money. And we're paying a dividend, and we've got no debt, and hopefully when the service contracts get converted into production sharing agreements, we'll be the owners of billions of barrels of oil. So we've got big plans for next year. We got the backing financially, and the government is 100% behind us. And, things couldn't be any better. Apart from the fighting, which is sort of slowing us down, everything's okay.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for introducing the company to us. Hopefully, maybe we can catch up early or, maybe Q1 next year, see how things are going. But thank you very much for your time today. Mandir Singh, the chairman of Wildcat Petroleum.
Before we go, we've got our AGM on Friday, so I'd like to see as many Wildcat shareholders there as possible.
Okay. Thank you, Mandir.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.